Hello, my name is Cassandra and in this video I'm going to make an analysis of the 2006 movie Last Holiday. This analysis centers on what I believe to be the themes of the story, which is suppression and freedom, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about religion and some of the messages that I perceived from this movie. The original plot of Last Holiday, the original script, was written in 1950 by John Boynton Priestley, and it had many differences from the 2006 movie, but I'm going to talk about the 2006 one. The story is about Georgia Bird, who is a shy saleswoman and who finds out that she has a terminal illness, and she decides to spend all of her money on a last holiday in Europe. By the way, this movie is comedy romance, so it's lighthearted. The film starts with Georgia singing at the church. Although religion isn't mentioned many times in the movie, it is obvious that it's a part of who Georgia is and how she perceives the world. It's also a very characteristic thing that she does, where she talks at the air to God every time something bad or unexpected happens. In the beginning, we see that Georgia is very poor. She uses many coupons at the supermarket and she lives in a bad neighborhood. And two other things that she does that actually made an impression on me is she cooks these great and definitely very tasty meals, but she doesn't eat from them. She eats frozen portion-based meals and she gives the food that she cooks to her neighbors. And another thing was that there is this guy that she likes from her job and she is too insecure to actually make a move on him. Now, when Georgia finds that she has the Lambington's disease, which is a fictitious disease, she is first in denial, and then as she accepts it, something happens within her. This motion of knowing that she is going to die makes her release a part of herself that was trapped, and now she starts by quitting her job and actually speaking back to her horrible boss or manager. And then when she sings in the church, she sings so loudly and from the heart because there are no more restrictions, there are no more confinements for her self-expression because she has nothing to lose. She buys a one-way ticket to Europe and then she does something that I thought was very unexpected, which was that she sold all of her bonds, and we realized that Georgia actually has a lot of money. What we thought in the beginning that she was poor and she lived in a bad neighborhood, she was using all these coupons, you could tell that she was not satisfied with her life. In reality, it was almost a decision to live like that. That was the first moment when I thought a little bit about religion and how it could subconsciously affect Georgia's choices. Now, I know that religion is a controversial topic and not one that I would want to start. And I know that many people say that religious texts say one thing but they mean another thing. But I'm not going to stay on that topic because if we just take a look at the people and their beliefs, it doesn't really matter because my talk is not about religion itself, but how Georgia was affected by her religious beliefs. And again, this is based on my perception, from my experiences, from my family's experiences with religion and everything. It's really surprising that Georgia had so much money in the corner. I don't know if this is something that Americans do, that maybe they buy bonds and wait until they are 60 years old to sell them. If you're struggling to live day by day, and you use coupons and you are in a bad place financially, I think it's only natural to sell some of these bonds at least, or to find another job if you see that this is not paying well. But Georgia did none of that. She wasn't really satisfied, but she was used to living life that way and didn't complain, didn't search for anything above that. And based on my experiences, from my perspective, I do believe that religion affected her choices and her decisions on how to live her life. After she takes all that money and she arrives in Europe, she has to wait for a taxi and she does not want to wait because her time now is precious and she hires a private jet in order to get to her destination, which is an absolute extravagant and unnecessary expense. And when she gets there, because she's very early, they didn't have the room they had prepared for her, and she booked the presidential suite. Again, an unnecessary and extravagant expense. Georgia also eats without reservations, and there are basically no more limits to what she does. And how she talks to people, because she talks back even to people that she's not very familiar with. If I'm going to take the religious route that I mentioned earlier, we could say that Georgia had lost her way in regards to her religious beliefs during that period, although she still talked to God whenever something bad or unexpected happened. I know that the concept is that when you know that you're going to die, the thing that I received from this movie is that you are being released from the suppression and that you find freedom. However, Georgia didn't just find freedom, but I believe that she lost herself because she not only went against her religious beliefs that seemed to be an important part of her life, but she also left everything that was important to her behind. Whoever the people that were important to her were back in Louisiana, where she came from. But instead, she decided to spend all her money, to waste all her money at a luxurious hotel in Europe. There are two more scenes in the movie that I found interesting. One of them was at the casino when she played the same number 3 times and she won, in spite of everyone telling her not to do it. This was like her taking fate in her own hands. However, she still thanked God for this result, and she actually said she's not going to play with him anymore, and she took the money. And the second scene was when she spoke at the table toward the end of the story, when she said this quote that I really, really liked. You keep your head down and you hustle, you hustle. One day you look up and wonder, how did I even get here? See, some of the things we care about a lot are pretty worthless. And this quote actually goes against to what she has been doing. This quote on its own, it's very beautiful. It makes you question what you're doing in your life, the things that trouble you and stress you out. Perhaps they're not so important after all, and you should focus on things that bring you happiness. You should appreciate your family more. But Georgia acts in a different way because the things she cared about and were actually important are left back in Louisiana. And she's now in a hotel at a foreign country with people she doesn't care about, and she is practically spending her last days with them. And although Georgia knows she is going to die, she didn't really need to waste her money on a private jet or on the most expensive room at the hotel. She could instead give that money to charity, something that would actually be in accordance to her religious beliefs. Because the thing is, we need to figure out what is important and what we need to pay attention to and what we need to leave behind. Georgia left behind what was important and actually lost herself along the way. There was a bit of Georgia walking in the snow and sitting on a bench and feeling lonely, but the story didn't really focus on that. And the ending was rushed and anti-climatic. The reuniting of Sean and Georgia had absolutely no impact on the story and on Georgia's emotional state, or her transformation for that matter. In fact, Georgia, the moment she learned that she's going to die, became a caricature character, one-dimensional, who doesn't change and who acted completely out of character. Not because she was no longer shy. I understand this is also a comedy, so you need to make it unrealistic and funny, but because she left behind the things that were important to her, and along with them, it was also herself. All in all, the things that I got from this movie is that Georgia had chosen suppression in her life. She had chosen to live poorly. She had chosen all these frozen meals, although she was cooking these very beautiful and tasty meals. And of course, she had chosen not to make a move on Sean, although Sean was actually interested in her as well. Finally, the messages I got from this movie is that fear and suppression lead to a life lived but not experienced, and one's mindset can create greater obstacles than one's circumstances. Because in the end, Georgia was not poor, she chose to live that way. Fortune favors the bold, and that's because the moment she booked that airplane ticket and she got out of her comfort zone, only good things started happening to her, whether winning at the casino, meeting her favorite chef, and in general, positive situations kept circling around her. And lastly, unrestrained freedom can make you lose yourself. That was my analysis of Last Holiday 2006. I know it's a comedy romance movie and it is targeted to people who want some content that is going to leave them fulfilled and not care about the details, but I wanted to take it a step further because I think a story, even if it's something that is meant to relax people, it should at least keep some integrity when it comes to the characters. I know I'm thinking too deeply about it, but yeah, I decided to make this analysis and here we are. Thank you for watching this far. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for future content, and write in the comments if you actually thought that deeply about this movie and if you have actually watched the original one, because it's worlds different from the 2006 movie. So yeah, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye bye.